What are you saying, boys and girls? Hope you all had a sensible weekend and enjoyed any law-abiding activities you might have engaged in. So this is the beginning of a new series of episodes that we're going to be covering that definitely should have started a long time ago, considering I have a psychedelic related channel. So for the perceptive amongst you, you've probably figured out that I actually took 2C-B lately, for the first time in quite a long time, probably since August 2021, when I went to this metal festival called Bloodstock. That year I'd only taken 2C-B twice, which was pretty out of the ordinary because it was often my favourite psychedelic to do recreationally at festivals, and I also had some quite profound introspective experiences on it. But unfortunately, after Bloodstock, a lot of my resources dried up and I was unable to actually get a hold of any. I'm also not a fan of risking ordering online or doing anything like that. I prefer to actually purchase off people in real life, and if I can do, actually test it myself, which unfortunately this time I wasn't able to because it was a bit of a spur of the moment sort of thing. I would definitely encourage you, if you can, to test all your substances. That goes without saying. It's better to be safe than sorry. But yeah, I'd actually taken 2C-B earlier in the year before, earlier in 2021, before Bloodstock, the last time I took it. And I didn't have a bad trip, but I definitely had a very confusing trip. It was sort of threw me off a bit. I was taking it at a festival, and naturally, for me, 2C-B is the go-to psychedelic for fun, the best one to take with mates, because it's quite mild. It can get intense, but in an enjoyable sort of way. It doesn't last ages like acid, and it doesn't have sort of the spacey magical aspect of shrooms, which allows me personally to just let go and dance and engage with the music and just have a laugh with my mates, which is probably the best aspect about it, really. Smaller doses of 2C-B that are under 15 milligrams, they can just be used as like a sensory or aesthetic enhancer, a bit similar to MDMA, but the larger doses going towards like 20-25 milligrams and beyond, they produce these distinct mind-manifesting psychedelic effects, very similar to LSD, combined with MDMA. But it was also a unique chemical in itself if you're not aware of 2C-B at all. But to backtrack to the point of this video, fuck me, I'm so bad with these tangents. I need to iron them out of my psyche. Hopefully taking more 2C-B in the future will help with that. But yeah, I had the opportunity to do it again, which was funny because it was strange. I almost manifested it in a way. I was talking with people about it and just sort of having the psychedelic calling, which is, you can see throughout a lot of these trip reports. I did one of these mushroom trip reports lately where the person talked about, I think it was the 7 grams alone in the cabin, where he perfectly described the calling that the psychedelics give to you. It's almost like they're beckoning you, but it's also basically your subconscious is desiring to sort of shed the ego, in a sense, to elevate you to higher levels of consciousness. At least that is for me. I know that's exactly what it is. When I feel ready, the urge to do it is almost insatiable, and which is a great thing for me. It shows that I'm not just like gagging for, I need to get trippy me, I need to numb the pain of this, or I need to just distract myself. I felt like, I'm ready to actually just see what the experience is about, enhance my consciousness, amplify aspects of my life via it, and also just deepen connections with mates and just all the other great things that come with psychedelics. Because to be honest, I think in the lockdown era of COVID, I did start to veer off psychedelics and not take them as much as I used to, and I definitely noticed the ego backlash that was going on, because I used to take them regularly and had and also engaged with meditation, and I was a pretty conscious, like non-egoic person. Not saying I'm like fucking narcissist or anything, or egotistical because I don't take psychedelics, because that would show that there's something fundamentally wrong with my own mind. But I definitely fell back into bad habits that, it's normal to do that as a human being. It's just completely natural. Shouldn't judge yourself for it. But I noticed that, not taking psychedelics as regularly after my 4-ACO DMT mega dose trip that was like the most intense experience of my life, it sort of scared me from psychedelics, because realistically the ego knew that if it kept doing stuff like that, it would have been completely eradicated, and that is the function and nature of the ego. It wants to survive, and it'll mess with you. It'll make you think things like, oh, you're just going to take psychedelics next time and go crazy, or have a bad trip or whatever. And it really did sort of control me until very, very recently, when I've gone through all these sort of painful experiences, all the suffering I've told you that I've gone through, and the development that's come with it, the positivity that has actually been catalysed from the suffering that I've gone through in 2022. And now I just feel like I'm absolutely ready to start doing it again. And I owe it to myself as a psychedelic YouTuber to keep experimenting and keep doing my own scientific research, if you know what I mean. And yeah, I couldn't have had a better trip the other night. It was absolutely amazing. It reminded me of all the reasons why I love psychedelics and why I did them so regularly. Because, I mean, for a time when I was younger, I was doing psychedelics regularly because I just like to get fucked up. You know, it's like for any substance user or psychedelic head, you do go through that period. And then for me, what happened was it got to a point where this experience started getting so deep, it didn't just become about getting fucked. It became about enhancing my consciousness and seeing what altered states were like, exploring different realms, dimensions, seeing what each psychedelic could grant me in terms of personal development, spiritual development, deeper understandings. And now I've come full circle again, and now I'm fully ready to start doing it again. I'm ready, open to any experience, no matter how dark it can get, no matter what it wants to show me, whatever's in my subconscious, my shadow, I'm ready to do it. And it might get scary, but I know that sometimes you got to bite the bullet, dive into the deep end, go heads first, and just embrace whatever comes up. And to be honest, there wasn't a lot of those sort of shadow elements in my trip overnight. It was just pure euphoria, happy times, laughing my fucking head off, basically. Me and my mate took them. I think it was like 20 to 22 milligrams, so that's quite it's like coming towards a stronger dose on the lower end of a common dose. And it just couldn't have gone any better, really. I didn't have many insane metaphysical insights that I've not already had already. It just sort of hammered them home a bit. Possibly the deepest part of the experience was I went to the bathroom and literally just could not stop smiling. I noticed how they always say, if you smile, it's going to naturally increase your positive energy, and we forget to do that a lot as humans. We're often just, especially in the UK, how fucking miserable some people are. Very grim island this at times, and just walking around with a blank face or frowning without realising it does affect your mental state without you even being conscious of it. And obviously with psychedelics, they raise your consciousness and make you more insightful. So I realised, why don't I just smile all night and keep riding the wave, and no matter when the things got intense, I just smiled through it and just embraced it. Accepted any of the intensity of the experience, and I just loved it, even when it got a bit weird and trippy at the peak. I just loved every single aspect of it. But I went into the bathroom and I was smiling, and I turned around and looked at myself in the mirror, which is something I love to do on psychs, because it's just, if you want to have an instantly profound experience, just look into your eyes and stare at them for as long as possible. It can get pretty wavy and it can get seriously out there. There's points when I've looked in the mirror on mushrooms where I've literally melted and saw my own reflection sort of making faces back at me, speaking without any words coming out. Basically like looking into a mirror dimension, some fucking Silent Hill shit that. But oftentimes if you just accept it and embrace it and don't let the ego tamper with what's going on, it can be a really magical experience. But on 2C-B there was none of the sort of weird wavy stuff. I just looked at myself in the mirror and I just became conscious and noticed that I'm not the body, I'm not the ego staring back, I am the awareness of the body, I'm the awareness of my consciousness. And when I was speaking, I spoke to myself in the mirror briefly, just like, there's nothing to be worried about, life's perfect, no matter how bad it gets, everything's just part of the big picture plan. Even no matter how rough things will get, you will work them out, just general motivational stuff. And when I was doing that, I noticed that what was speaking wasn't the ego of Vivek, the body speaking. It was the awareness, it was the consciousness speaking through this vessel. I know that's some new age shit or whatever you people want to call it, But that's what it felt like to me, and I know a lot of other people can agree with that. That when they acknowledge themselves on psychedelics in the mirror, that it feels like it's not the ego or the body speaking, or this material flesh being. It's the consciousness, the awareness that's creating that being, if you know what I mean. Can be quite hard to understand if you're not at a mystical state, or if you're just getting into psychedelics and you've never heard of stuff like this. It's natural to be sort of skeptical. I'm not saying any of it's fully true, but for me, that's what feels true and makes the most sense and has the deepest sense of profundity as well. Other aspects of the night that were really interesting for me were how this happens to me a lot on psychedelics anyway, and my mate who also took 2C-B agreed with me. I don't know what that clicking is in the background. I'm really sorry. I'm just on a flow right now. I don't want to stop the recording. I need to sort that out. I know me and him noticed that when you peak or start feeling the trippiness, it almost feels like it affects those around you, because my mate who had taken it, he was convinced that everyone else was on 2C-B as well, and which for a point I was as well. I was like, is everyone else tripping and I don't know about it? But obviously I realised at the end of the day that it was sort of just that my consciousness playing a trick on me. Or also, the other explanation for it, I'd say, is that when you take psychedelics or you're around anyone who's on them, like when I've been sober and my mates have been on some form of psych, I've noticed that their energy also spills out into me as well, and I can sort of feel trippy as well, because it's so profound, the alteration in consciousness that are going through, that their energy sort of spills out into you as well, because at the end of the day we're all interconnected, aren't we, on a conscious level, and even just on a material level. When you're around people, just their emotional level can affect yours as well. And especially when you're on psychs, you're gonna possibly unconsciously, subconsciously start affecting people without realising. That's where the notion of thinking, oh, is everyone on psychedelics as well? But obviously they actually weren't. It was just me and him. And we had such a good laugh, it was amazing. And I also managed to smoke a little bit of weed, which was unheard of for me, because I've spoke about in the past few years that my relationship with cannabis has become quite toxic, unpleasant. And now, I think because I'm sort of working through my ego baggage and engaging my shadow a lot more, that marijuana is starting to have a much more productive, enjoyable aspect to it. And when it does get sort of a bit intense for me, I just embrace it rather than trying to stop it, because I've noticed every time I do it, I do often try to put the negative, not the negative thoughts, but the things that need working on in my life, I try to put them to the back of my head. I'm just like, I just want to get stoned out of my head, me. And oftentimes, I feel when you take psychedelics and you're a pretty trippy spiritual person, cannabis isn't just about the pleasure aspect, it's also about the growth as well. And if you try to quell that, it's just gonna come round and bite you in the ass again, like how it often does on psychedelics. If you're suppressing something, it will just come back tenfold and become quite so intense to the point where it's like you start doing fucking crazy shit, like taking your clothes off and running around in circles and that, because you're suppressing it so much that it's sort of like it spills out into your body, into your waking state in reality, and the ego's trying so hard to fight it off that it will just sort of explode in an energy burst of like doing crazy shit. There's a lot of explanations for why that happens, and it's also very subjective, but yeah, you know what I mean, or at least I hope you do. Not much else to say really, other than, we started playing Elden Ring, me and my mates, and I noticed, the two things that really stuck out to me is, which I would like to do more in the future, I started mixing, doing my DJing, mixing drum and bass, and me and my mate were doing it, who were both tripping, and we both agreed that we actually found ourselves literally in like the perfect flow state. When I got on the decks, I was initially quite anxious, because I hadn't mixed in a bit, and also that was pretty trippy as well, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this, I'm just, I'm too altered right now to do it. But it was strange, it literally felt like it was doing it for me. It felt like driving a car. It was like second nature. I just felt every single beat was matching up. I was almost not thinking about it at all, I was just doing it, which again, oftentimes the best skills or hobbies that you engage in, you just literally do. You don't think about them, you just engage with them. Like anything, like again, we started playing Elden Ring later, and when I was doing the best at it, I noticed when I wasn't thinking about it, I was just sort of flowing with it, I was riding it. instead of thinking, oh, I need to do this thing now, I need to do that thing now, and instead I was just embracing it because because I was on a psychedelic and in a heightened state. The ego was obviously dampened, and the ego and the thinking mind are very prevalent when you're in your sober normal state. But being in that heightened state via the 2C-B really allowed me to just flow with what was going on. I need to stop saying the word flow or else it's gonna lose all meaning. And I really enjoyed doing that, so I'm going to be definitely mixing again in the future and putting that to the test, because I often was also very sceptical of doing that in the past. Like, I won't be able to mix whilst I'm under the influence of something. But now, I realise if you're under the influence of something that heightens your consciousness, it is actually going to benefit you massively. It just felt like every single beat I was picking and every single adjustment to the sound came automatically, which is like the best possible way you can approach a skill like that. I cannot vouch enough for this 2C-B trip. It was one of my favourites so far. Just complete positivity, extended into the whole night. Even the afterglow, I'm still feeling the afterglow now. Definitely going to keep doing psychedelics regularly now and report back on them and do more trip reports myself, written ones and more on the fly ones like this one. I'd do a written trip report for one where it was like got seriously in depth and profound, but this 2C-B one just was like, it was just a light fun time with some cool insights and some funky experiences which I can just talk about on the fly. But when I do say I plan on taking, I want to explore other psychedelics that I've never done before. Obviously 5-MeO DMT is massively up there, and I'd like to try mescaline and ibogaine and etc. So yeah, I know a lot of you enjoyed my early videos where I actually wrote them up. It's a lot more cohesive than talking on the fly, and there's a bit more of a narrative aspect to it, much more engaging, and also I can sort of edit some cool visuals together that complement the report and that. But right now, just a little casual discussion. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've had any experience of 2C-B, what's it like for you? Because I know it's very subjective for me, because a lot of people say, oh, it's like a mix between MDMA and LSD, which for me, it somewhat is, but it just feels completely unique in its own right. Like, I don't really get that many visuals. You sort of get that very, very subtle ones. It's more a mental, physical feeling, which, to be honest, I'm all about that. I'm not fussed about visuals. I take them or leave them. Obviously, they're very cool and can also enhance the depth of your trip. And I've had some crazy ass visuals in the past off LSD, and mainly off LSD and 4-ACO. But yeah, 2C-B is a lot lighter in that regard, which I don't mind at all, because the beauty of psychedelics is the metaphysical insights into your life and reality itself, and that's the real meat and potatoes, as I like to say. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this, and if not, then I'm not going to do much about it, to be fair.